What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Table Talk podcast. My name is Walker, this is Ashlyn, and today we are at our friends the Holladays table.
Welcome.
It's us.
Well, welcome. It's the same exact layout as our house because we found out recently we were neighbors.
Yes.
And the camera is pointed the same way, so if you took the high chair out and put a rack full of hats and jackets there and a little coffee bar, then they would be like, this is the same place.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you for letting us use your home.
Yeah.
Holladays, how are you?
We're doing good.
Great.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming to our house.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Thanks
We
for,
can literally step out our back door and see.
We've
y'all's
been
house.
stealing your Wi-Fi for months.
It's great
It's
to
been
know.
great.
We did find out that you can connect to our Wi-Fi from their house. So that is terrible news, but I did just get your Wi-Fi password. So
Which we're not gonna tell anybody that.
Broadcast.
So, okay, so we're gonna jump right into it. We hung out with y'all for the first time officially
Like a month ago.
about a month ago, and we had a great time, and we were like, we have got to get these people on the podcast and talk to them. And my first question is, what does that say about you two? That the first time someone hangs out with y'all, they go,
We need them on a podcast.
We gotta
They
talk to
have
them.
a lot of content that we can use.
We get that a lot.
Yeah.
So it's just the usual.
we are going to
Yes.
wring out as much content as possible. That's why we want to hang out one time. And
Right.
I was like, I don't need to hear anything else until we
We
get
gotta
them on a
save
mic.
the juicy stuff for
Yeah,
that's
the
right.
podcast. Yes.
We can do that.
So, who are you? Classic introductions. Who are you? How long have you been married? What do you do for work? Give us the spiel on who the Holladays are.
So I'm Mr. Colby Holladay, and this is Mrs. Colby Holladay. And
My name is
Also known as
Keelee Holladay.
Yeah. Sometimes she uses her name, but
He also wanted us to practice today and say our name in tandem.
that was one time.
Okay, well, let's hear it.
And we did it in the coffee house.
We
Can you
can't.
try
We
it
can't
one
say
time?
what we said about it. We can't. Say.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I don't remember what we said.
We said we're Mr. Well, we can't do it now.
Yes, you can.
We're the
Okay.
we're the Holidays is what
All
we
right.
said.
3, 2, 1, go.
We're the Holidays. It was much better in the
Yeah, it was better in the car.
Cut this out.
Cut that out, Jamie.
Yeah. All right, cut that. I'm not cutting it. I'm not cutting that at all. But, so, besides your names, what is anything else about you?
So,
can go.
I'm a chiropractor here in Jonesboro. Been practicing for a year and a half now, and we have a little more than 1.5-year-old son, and a dog named Raleigh, and that's everything you need to know about me.
It's a lot. And I am a therapist at Living Well Counseling with Ashlyn. Ashlyn is my coworker. Fun fact, Ashlyn actually trained me.
I did, in fact.
Yes.
I didn't know what I was doing, but I acted
She
like
did
I
a great
knew what I
job.
was doing.
She did a great job, obviously.
I believe that.
Yeah.
We are still both employed. So
Yes.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
yes, and so we're both working in Jonesboro, and like you said, we have a little boy named Henry who's actually asleep right now in our house as we do this, because that's what you have to do whenever you have a toddler. And then our dog is 10 years old, and so we just have to throw that out. So whenever we listen to this back, we can think about Riley.
Oh, so true.
I love that.
Long live Riley.
I was gonna say he's never gonna pass away, so I don't know why.
Yeah.
why I
We
just
always
said
say he's
that.
going to be the longest dog to ever live,
Hey, I
or the
love
first
that.
dog to ever
The
out.
longest dog.
The
ever
lo-
lived?
Wait.
I've heard
With dog.
Yeah,
Listen, we know that I can't talk after
He's-
7. So.
he's half lab, part wiener dog. So
Slinky dog from Toy Story.
he's long bodied.
Listen, he's going to live longer than us, okay?
Riley will marry the Holidays.
We hope. We can only hope. That's what every parent wants.
Colby, did you go? No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say this one left really fast.
I hope everyone enjoys this as much as we do, because this is great.
As long as they can hear it. Colby, did you have a fun fact for us? You didn't give a fun fact. I don't think having a dog is a fun fact.
Oh no.
Oh, we actually discussed our fun facts, and I don't really have a good
Why
one.
did y'all practice everything for this podcast?
We didn't
and you
practice.
threw-
We just ran through, and I was like, I don't have any fun facts about myself, and I threw one out that Colby said.
I think being a chiropractor is a fun fact. It's just a weird.
Everybody
It's just-
thinks he's really weird.
It's an odd thing.
Like whenever you're like, oh, my husband's a chiropractor, they're like, ooh.
yeah,
Wow.
I get that a lot.
I mean,
They think it's like
is it-
sorcery and like
compare it to a
witchcraft.
Yeah, compare it to a witch doctor. What's the?
Yeah.
It's basically the same.
That's good to know
I-
as your patient.
Yeah. Well,
Colby wasn't going to break HIPAA, but I'll say it.
yeah, I wasn't allowed to say. It.
Now that the cat's out of the bag.
She actually was blind before I started seeing her. So you're welcome.
False advertising.
We'll never know. We'll never know.
She can walk now though, and
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
a new development.
Less
so
pain, yay.
Thank you, Mr.
You're welcome.
Holladay.
Yes.
Man, that is great.
She hopped up out of that wheelchair so fast.
Colby.
I wasn't sure, but
No.
This is awesome.
yeah, worth
Well-
worth every
I can't
penny.
believe we agreed to put this out in
Yeah.
the public.
Well, I guess y'all still have to technically agree to put it out, but I plan on releasing this.
Yeah, go for it.
So, I'm sure we will get off on a million other tangents, but to try and get the base point
Yep.
of having one, because we are merged with Marriage Matters, so we like to have married couples on just to talk about their stories, and I know y'all have a very interesting story that, and I'm not kidding, we are going to break it up into multiple parts just to make sure you have to come back on.
Yeah.
It's true.
But when we hung out together, the majority of the time we talked about y'all's big move from this area, correct? Are y'all both from this area?
Yes.
So I'm from Paragould, and
I'm from Brooklyn and Paragould.
Yes.
I'm from both.
that's like a common argument that we won't get off
She
on.
says I'm not from Paragould.
He's not. But,
But-
anyway, he's
but I-
from Brooklyn. And so we are from this area, moved to Atlanta, and then are now back. And so
If only the story was that short.
I know
Yes,
it is
it's-
not.
And uninteresting as he made it sound, because it is not that.
Yes, we have lots
So-
of stories.
Yeah, I just wanted, where we are coming from is we want to kind of dive into those aspects of the decision to move to Atlanta, how y'all were able to like build a community there, and how y'all were together as a couple in Atlanta, and some of those stories, if you if you are willing to hear some of them,
Oh yeah.
and then the decision to move back.
Yep.
So that's kind of how we'll try and keep this on the broadest train tracks of all time. So I will keep it that broad with the question, why Atlanta?
I think we should start at when we got married. I was finishing my undergrad at Arkansas State, and Keelee had just graduated. So I had one semester left when we got married, and the plan was at that point to go to chiropractic school. But honestly, I was a terrible undergrad student. Sorry to any of my patients that are listening, thinking less of me. I was terrible. So I really, honestly, didn't even think that I would get into chiropractic school. And when it came time to apply, I really didn't want to apply. And Keelee actually said, yes, you're going to apply. And that was because that was the plan the whole time. So fast forward a little bit, I did apply. I got in, and this is near Thanksgiving. So near this time of the year, I get my acceptance letter, and they tell me school is starting, I think, January the 3rd.
Yeah.
So quick, yes.
And we had gotten married in May.
Yep.
And so this is May. We get married in May of 2018. And then we are living in Brooklyn at apartments there.
And we hardly ever see each other because I go to school and work nights, and she
I
works
worked in the
days.
day. And so I would get home, he would be gone, and then I would be asleep, and he'd get home, and I would leave before he was awake. So not seeing each other the whole time
Yeah.
during these first 6 months of our marriage.
At all.
And
Yeah.
and so that was in May. we go down in November, the week of Thanksgiving, I think.
Yep, it was
And
Thanksgiving
so we go down with my parents and we look for apartments. Can't apply because we have no income.
No Georgia income.
No Georgia income whatsoever. And so they will not take us.
And
They don't like the out of states.
No. We were
And-
not welcome.
I don't know if you've ever been to Atlanta. There's a lot of not nice places in Atlanta.
Yes.
And that's what we could afford. And so we went and visit these places, and
So we're like
They're
trying to
not-
apply at all these places that we're like, oh, and we know nobody, and so we can't like ask around, like, what's a nice place, like, where do you live? And so we go, and then 2 weeks later, well, I guess like a month later, we're moving.
it was I think the week before Christmas before we actually found an apartment. And school is still starting.
You got to start in like
January
2
Yes,
weeks.
and so we are calling over the phone to all of these people who we can't see in real life, and we are like, "Hey, we're moving. We promise we can pay our bills."
And they don't care.
But I don't have a job. And so, so it's just like all these not things. So that just like set us up to move. And so that is kind of where we got to. So I knew, like Colby said, I was like, yes, you have to apply. Like, this is what you feel God is calling you to, and like all of that. And he got in. And so we moved 3 days after Christmas. And that is how we got there.
But the apartment that we found didn't call us until the week before Christmas. They FaceTimed us. We'd never seen this apartment complex ever. They FaceTime us, and it's super blurry. You can't see
And
anything.
we're like, yeah,
They
it's
just,
great. We're so happy.
Yeah, they just show the phone to the apartment, and they're like, "Is this good?" And we
Doesn't
So
matter.
when
we
y'all
said we'd
went to
take
tour
anything.
apartments, this
This
was
was
not
not it.
one
This was
that you
not
looked
No.
at.
And
Okay.
they like basically just let us have it because I called every day bawling my eyes out to this lady, and she like graciously, and I was like, I promise we'll pay. You can like look at our like, call our tenants, like all those things. So basically, I was like on my hands and knees, like begging this person to let us live there, and
It's
so
an effective tactic, clearly.
and it
It
works.
works. It did work.
And so then we move, and our parents help us move down 3 days after Christmas, and we have arrived at Atlanta.
And there we are.
There we
In
are.
a
Not
terrible place. The worst place. Yeah, it was the day we moved in. Her parents, they didn't tell us this until I think after we moved back. But when they dropped us off, they said they cried all the way home.
because like we pull up and we're all excited, then like we pull up to this place that we're living in, we're all like, oh.
And what year is this?
2018 at the end.
Yeah, at the end.
So
of
we had been
2018.
married like in May, at end of May. We had been married like right at I guess 6 months.
Yeah.
And so, but when we pull in, we like move in, and that night Colby and I go
It
to.
was exactly 7 months. We signed a 7-month lease with where we lived at the first place, and then we signed another 7-month lease at the Crossings, which is the place. We also got married at the Crossings in Paragould, and then the
Where
name
did
of the
you go?
apartment
Wow.
complex was the Crossings because there's a lot of sevens that came
Oh,
up.
okay, I'm
and
sorry.
So come on, babe, I was gonna bring that up. Edit that out for me, please.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Yeah, take that out. But anyway, we signed a 7-month lease because that's all they had for us. And the very first night after her parents leave us, they're crying. We get pizza somewhere, and Keelee does something that I would never do in a million zillion jillion years ever.
Yes.
She walked up to 2 in uniform police officers and
And
just
said, "Put your hands up."
yes. She pulled their gun out of the gun.
No, I was terrified, and I was like, these are 2 people that we should be able to trust. And so I walked up to them, and I was like, hey, we're new. And they're like, welcome, where do you live? And I tell them our address. And in an edited version, they say, get the mess off that street.
Oh, wow.
And so it's dark at this point. And
It's nighttime.
we go home to our new home
For the first time.
for the first night.
time.
And it's on a Saturday. And so no one is in the office. Like, I don't even know how we got the keys.
We got somebody waited to give us
Okay.
the key.
That was
Yes.
awfully kind of them.
Yes. And so we get to the door. It is dark. We've just told this. Our parents are still at the hotel at this point.
Yes.
And so they're staying the night at a hotel. We're like, let us go get food. We're going to get settled, all of that. And we get to the door of our apartment. And the key, they did not change the locks. And so we have the wrong key.
We don't
To
have
the
a key
wrong-
to the door.
Yes.
And
We have a key.
We have a key, but not to our door.
No.
And we are in just picture the sketchiest place you've ever been in
Yes,
your
and
life.
no nobody.
Our apartment was upstairs on an exterior hall. There's no light, so we're in a dark hallway
man.
somewhere we've never been. We don't have an actual key to our apartment. And Keelee, I think I have the key. I can't remember. One of us has the key. Putting it in the door, just jiggling it.
And jiggling and jiggling, and finally, like, I'm panicking.
She's crying
And I'm crying, and I'm laying on the door.
and praying.
And I'm like, God, only you can open this door. I know you can open this door. And so we effectively broke into our apartment, which makes
Yep.
you feel really safe that you can break into your apartment. And we lay in bed, obviously not able to sleep. And I say, don't tell my parents. And so that was our like first like initiation.
And about
like, into
2 hours after she fell asleep, I heard gunshots right out the window,
Yes.
which we
So-
heard almost every night for the next 7
And
months.
so whenever you're from Brooklyn, Arkansas, like it is just like shock.
Rude awakening.
Yes. And so, and then it was just funny because like we would,
we were
and
cultured.
we'll get to like us being at the church that we were at, but like we would tell people and they'd be like, oh, because they're like, where do you live? And we would like tell them. I remember like meeting people at my women's group for the first time and they were like, what street do you live on? And I would tell them. And then so then they'd be like, oh.
They're the type of ladies to put their hand and go, bless you.
They
Bless
were
your
just
heart."
more like,
They're
oh,
like, do you
no.
want to come over and stay?
And so then I would be like, oh, just over that way. Like I would like stop telling people where we live
In
because
this
it was like,
area.
yes,
We're close by.
yes. And so yeah, and then Colby started school, like 5 days later or something like
Yeah.
that. It's crazy. After we moved, and I did not have a job, because we like within a month are moving into this new place, and so. And in Arkansas, you have to have your license to practice as a therapist.
Yes.
I just assumed it was the same in Georgia. I did no research, 23, didn't think it through. And so I kept applying for different jobs that were not therapy. And
Because you didn't have your Georgia license.
I didn't have my Georgia license. And so, but later, after not having
This is stressing me out.
after not having a job for 4 months, I found out that I didn't have to do all of that. And so that I was just applying for jobs. And Colby was like, finally, I'm like, I need to go work at Target, or something. And Colby's like, no, like you got your master's and all the things. And so I did not have a job for 4 months, after we moved there. So Colby was in school. We knew nobody.
Neither of us had jobs.
But
And
you had an
we
apartment,
had-
you had to pay for,
we
you had all
thought-
these
Yeah.
bills.
When we moved from Brooklyn to Atlanta, we were under the impression we're like, oh, big city, Keelee's gonna make a lot more money.
I'm going to be rich.
Yeah.
We're gonna be fine.
Rolling.
That's,
Like,
that's
we are
how
going to
it
live here
works.
forever because we are going to just make so much money and be
And
like,
then she did not get a
Dun,
job
dun,
for 4
dun.
months. And then, so January, February, March, April, rent, all of those add up. Cost of living in Atlanta, I don't know if anyone knows this, it's about 3 times as high as it is here. So our rent tripled, our income went to 0. So in April,
do the
I
math
just
there.
want to let y'all know that I failed college algebra 3 times, and that doesn't add up. to me.
It doesn't.
so
And you can only pay your rent there with cash or a check.
I love
no,
that.
no credit
No
cards.
credit cards. And so, which I'm thankful for now that we didn't rack up credit.
So
but-
there's a lot of things that we've left out, but God's hand was in everything that we did. And one of the biggest signs of that is that April rent was due and I was panicking. Usually Keelee's the one that's panicking over money. She couldn't care less.
I refused to look at the bank account.
Yes,
And
and I
Cole's
was
like, do
looking
you
at it.
know how much is in our bank account? And I say, I just don't look.
That's a great
just don't
way to do it
look.
if you know you have money.
Yeah, well, I knew we did not have any money, so
And I was
we're-
just living life.
we're-
Like, no job.
We're in the low triple digits in the bank account, and rent's due, and it's not triple digits; it's more than that. And I don't know what we're gonna do because there's no way we can pay rent. And I got a check in the mail from a car accident that I was in when I was about 10 years old, and
Was
when
23.
and I'm 23 at the time, and that case had just settled, and it was for the exact amount as our rent was,
Yes. And-
right when we needed it.
I got chills the first time y'all told us that, and I'm getting chills all over again
Yes.
because that is just incredible.
What would you say to somebody who said you got lucky, or that was that's convenient?
I mean, that's a fair point, but I've got multiple things that happened to us.
Well, and then
that
also, yeah,
all point to God.
it was like things just kept happening. And so I will also preface that, like, obviously we go in, like, just graduated. I was making great money straight out of school here. And
we thought we were loaded.
We were loaded. And, like, our savings racked up, which obviously helped whenever we moved there. But, like, money was on our mind, and it's like, we're just going to accumulate, you know, and then humbled greatly. But whenever we got there, it's like that happened, and still, I did not have a job at this point when that came in.
Still.
And during those 4 months, 2 different times I got a check from my previous employer. Because like something had gone wrong and they hadn't paid me enough. And so like 2 of those checks. So that paid for like those next 3 months of rent. And like food. We weren't just having to like live on ramen. And so we were able to pay.
Eating a lot of Frosted Fakes.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying. If
We
you know
couldn't
what I'm
afford
saying.
the actual
Trademark.
But it was just like over and over, you know, like that was something. And so that just continued to happen. And not those big checks like that, but it's like God just showed up and like helped us, or
He provided every cent that we needed in a time where we could not provide it for ourselves.
And so finally I got a job, and I was not making a lot of money. And so like I finally landed a job, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make what I make here. And I made less than half. And so continued humbleness of like, oh, like we thought we were just going to be like, you know, have these great jobs. We're high and mighty, and like so humbled by that. And also living in a community that very affluent.
Except for where we live.
And so, like, that was just, like, a very, like, a testament. Like, that was, like, something where we went in and we were, like, clenching our money. And now that is, like, a takeaway that we have is, like, we trust God. Like, we don't, well, I won't say we never, but these are reminders from whenever we get sucked back into that of, like, okay, what are we going to do? Like, money is tight, or, like, this has been, you know, really hard. And so we can go back to those times. And be like, okay, God had us then, and we are going to trust Him. Like when we moved back here, money was really tight because Colby hadn't been working for 4 years, basically, and like I was transitioning, you know, jobs, and then I was on maternity leave, and money got tight again, and we were like, not worried. I mean, really, like, worry would come up, and then we'd be like, we've made it on less.
I was worried.
I was not.
She didn't look at the bank account.
I trusted in God. No, but it was just times like that where you can like look back, and so that was like one takeaway of many things in that time. So yeah, He just really had His hand on us.
Yeah, that's probably, that might end up being like the biggest takeaway from the whole time we're talking is when you have nothing, and you are not making anything or providing anything, and then you get provided for. It's like that just speaks to, you know, what we believe and who we put our faith in, and
But also just the fact that y'all were in Atlanta because y'all believe that's where God had led y'all.
Yes.
So like it's like I see the Lord's hand in every step. Like the financial side is huge, but like the fact that you were going where you needed to be obedient. Like I see that, and y'all's
And we
story.
felt that when we felt like we were walking in obedience. That's when, and we've always felt that whenever we've been walking in obedience, we felt like we've been provided for more in those times than in times where we were just like, I've got it, I can make the money, I can do all the things. That's when the humbleness comes really quick.
And we also, don't want to paint this picture that we're like, yes, Lord, you have us all the time. Yay, God. Like the whole time. Like when we moved there, I was like super sad because we didn't know anybody, and Colby was gone, and I didn't have a job, and I was super lonely, and we knew 2 people, and Walker, I'm talking.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I have been dealing with something in my chest and upper respiratory system for the past like 7 weeks, 8 weeks that I've been going to the doctor about. So I'm sure our listeners will understand
Empathize.
what's
They're
going
going
on.
too.
But these nasty looks that I'm getting are crazy. I'm even leaning away.
I'm sorry.
I was going super deep, and you interrupted me.
I did 3 other times too.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry.
Moral of the story was that we were not always in that mindset. Whenever I was like, why are we here? This is terrible. We know no one. You're at school, and all of that creeps in, and so, but still, and lots of timeline between all of these things, and so
in the time, like the 4 months y'all are there with basically no income, how's y'all's relationship? Like, how are y'all doing?
I think, well, it was really stressful on both of us. I think it was harder on Keelee because she was having to stay home during the day while I was going to school. In chiropractic school, you take 25 to 28 hours per quarter, so it's almost double of a regular student
in
load.
12 weeks.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So I was going from 7 a.m. to sometimes 5 to 6 o'clock at night on like 4 or 5 days a week. So
Oh,
it was I was out of the house a lot, and then when a lot of times I would go to the library and study,
And I didn't want to leave the house because I was scared.
Sure.
And so it was hard to
couldn't
meet
go on a
people.
walk.
And so I will say that I resented Colby a lot during that. That was a lot of it where I was like, I'm just going to go home. You're always gone. And I knew that, but it was just really hard. And I was struggling just with some things myself, and we know that the fact that the Lord, had me home for 4 months, really helped me in all my struggles that I was going through at that time and healing and things like that. But I had some physical things going on. And so that is part of it. But we were, I think, just in survival mode during those first 4 months and continued. But I think timeline is so important too to point out because like Colby said, when we got married, he was in his last semester of college. He was supposed to graduate a semester before. So we were supposed to get married and immediately move.
That was
And
the plan.
so that was the plan.
We had been dating
For
since
5
high
and a half
school.
years
Yeah.
before we got married. And so that was our plan. We're going to get married. We're going to move. Well, life circumstances caused Colby to have to do a semester late. And so then we're like, goodness, we're behind, all these things. Well, then we move into this apartment and it's a 7-month lease, which is weird.
That is.
We had never heard of it.
It's an
7-month
time.
lease. I was just like,
Nothing
What?
around here
You
is
had
like
to
that.
know. You had to know I was going somewhere.
I did. I'm sorry. And so then 7 months, and then to pivot, we got this amazing loft. And it's so hard to get into these. Everybody's like, it's impossible, all of this. Well, guess what? I called every single day.
crying.
Yes, and I was like,
She had
please,
nothing
I
else
will
to do.
pay. And so, and at this point, I had a job. We had, Georgia income, a little bit easier, and so we go. But 7 months to the day, our lease started and ended. We had to be out of our apartment the day we had to move into. And so timeline there, 7 months, and then we stayed at that apartment because it was wonderful and the coolest place we've ever lived. But
And we
until the
haven't
end.
mentioned yet the biggest thing that really got us through, and that was the church that we went to in Marietta. While we were at that apartment, we just Googled churches near us. We didn't have any preference or anything like that. And the very first church we went to was Marietta City Church.
City Church
Marietta.
Close enough.
Yeah, same thing.
He loves y'all.
Yeah, City Church Marietta. And they were meeting in a movie theater. They didn't have their own space at the time.
Sounds familiar.
Yes. And a small church. They had kind of just been around a couple years at that point, maybe just 2 or 3.
I don't remember.
But the very first person that we met was Tiffany, and she is the one that got you your first job.
Yes.
Yes, and
Wow.
the
And so
very
it's
first person, social
there's
worker.
lots of intricate things. And so We actually we moved in like that Saturday. My parents went home on Sunday. Like all of our family, and Colby's mom left on Sunday, and we got up and went to church that day. Because we were like, we are so lonely, and like we literally like, we're going to church tomorrow, and so we went to
somewhere.
I think
a
you
random.
were like, we're going to church tomorrow, and I was like, okay.
And so we Google, and we just go to the first church that pops up like in our town.
Thank you, Google Ads.
And
brave.
so yes, and they're meeting at this like theater downtown on the square. It's really cool, but very small. And so then the next week we go to a different church because we're like we're just gonna like go around. And while we're at that church, we were like, we wish we were at that church, and we were at that church the whole time that the 3.5, 4 years that we were there. That was like our community.
Was the only Sunday that we did not go to City Church.
Because when you know no one, that's where we knew to get plugged in. And so, like, anytime the doors were open, like women's group, I was there. Did I know anybody? No, and I was so scared.
Same thing.
Colby went to men's group, and so, like, there's a young adults thing. We were 23 at this time, freshly married. Like
Still young adults.
Yeah.
And so whenever the doors were open, we would be there. And so that was like the community that we got into that really like made a big game changer in our marriage, because that was just like a great, people fed into us.
Got to see some really good godly marriages.
Yeah. And so, and then we learned how to do community well with them. And so
I think we also learned how to be a little more humble on the things that we have, because when we would go to our men's and women's group, the area that we lived in, it wasn't like, you know, our house, it's just a little 3-bed, 2-bed house.
Yeah.
Some of the houses that we were going to were actual mansions, and you would never, ever, ever know it with the people at church. They were so humble, so gracious. They drive Corollas, and it's not like they're, got Rolexes on and things like that. And then you go to their house and they have all of this, and they just say, I'm just really blessed to have all these things. Yeah. So we learned kind of how to be a little more humble.
Which was so inviting for us because, like we said, we were living at our apartment whenever we first went, when people would be like, oh, you live there, but it wasn't like it was like, oh, we're worried for your safety, and
not
so
judgment,
not judgment. It was like very much so like,
right.
Hey, we love you. Like, let's go eat like dinner on us because we know you're poor,
and
college
house.
Kids,
Here's a gift card.
Yeah. And so we had like a married couple that really like they invested in us, and different couples, like that was their mission, was to do that. And so getting connected there, like total God thing that like he sent us there, because those were our people, and that was our people. Like we had a few friends outside of church, but it was like that was our community, and they did community well, and that really taught us a lot.
And I've heard you say that twice, that they did community well. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I don't even know how to really put it into words of how we felt, but what they did was that stop.
They didn't just
hey, let's go to church. It was like, hey, do y'all want to go get coffee?
And they weren't in holy huddles at church.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the same people in the same circle, in the same corner, in the same seats. It was really everybody needs to get to know everybody and be a community. There was nobody. I don't feel that there was anybody that was ever outcast at this church just for being a little different. Like everybody had their differences, and we all came together, and we all did community, which is going to each other's houses and knowing each other's kids and doing things like that, going out to eat and serving the community. Yeah,
and getting like really invested in each other. And so knowing each other's story was a big thing. And so like you would get to know each other. And so that is something that I feel like we like carry over. Like we want to know y'all's story, and like we want to, when we eat with people, it's not like, oh, work, da 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 da. We're like, so tell us everything, and so, which can be intimidating for a lot of people, and it was intimidating for us. But also I will say that the fact that we knew no one was so freeing and healed parts of ourselves
Mm-hmm.
too, was that like we just get to be ourselves
Right.
with these people, which was very cool because we're like, they don't know us, but
Yeah.
we like, and it wasn't like a facade or anything like that. It was just like, we get to like get to know these people because
Mm-hmm.
we're from here, know everybody from here. Our doctors go to our church, our dinner, like
Yeah.
all those things. And so it was just really eye-opening to be like, we get to be real with people. We have no clue who these are,
And I think you get to know yourself that way, because sometimes you can have friends and you have preconceived notions about yourself.
Yeah.
Like, Walker's the funny guy. He's always making jokes. If somebody puts that expectation on you, that's what you're gonna be.
Yeah.
I mean, I always felt, I never, just being honest, I never felt like I was very intelligent or very smart. I never struggled with school. I never tried, really, honestly. I never studied.
Which is why you were a bad undergrad
Which
student.
is why I was a bad undergrad student. But then when I went to chiropractic school, it was a much harder course load.
Mhm.
But I never struggled because I didn't feel like I had anybody that thought that I wasn't a good student, kind of. And nobody knew that I had struggled, and I was able to just go in with a fresh start. And I also didn't have a lot of the distractions that I have here. And so I was able to really excel in my chiropractic school. So
Yeah.
Well, being in a different, like totally different state, and mentioning not having the same distractions, I feel like that just being in Atlanta, like you had to focus up because it works both ways. Like I get to be myself, and that's freeing, but also it's like no one here knows me or really cares that I'm here. So I'm gonna have to like lock in and
Yeah.
Yeah.
get my stuff done to make it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because everything's expensive, like we said. So if you
Yeah.
have no money, you can't go do anything. And if you don't make it, you're not gonna have
Yeah.
any money.
And you're still gonna owe money.
And you're still gonna have money
Yeah.
to this day.
Well, and
It's-
being intentional too, like of our time, our finances, like all of that was like really good. And so then we're like, we have to be intentional about like making relationships and like things like that.
Going
And
out to eat, we had to make that intentional because we couldn't afford to do that very often. So we had to.
date
True.
nights are
date
really
nights
hard.
were a special thing because
Yeah.
at the beginning we really couldn't afford
Yeah, we
to
couldn't.
do anything. So when we
Yeah.
finally picked a night out on Friday night, so we go to Longhorn at like 4:00.
Ooh.
We'd be the only ones there because
Yes.
we ate so early.
Yes, we're old souls on the inside.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, I don't love that. Don't ask me to
I-
go
He's
to
like-
dinner.
Well,
I
you
love
can
that
get-
because I hate the crowds.
You can get second dinner if you go. You can eat again.
And now I'm
Which is
instantly in.
Oh my gosh. You just won him over.
Yeah, that's right. You're just not thinking ahead.
I guess not.
Yeah.
So, when did you finish chiropractic school?
I finished in the summer of 2022. So June 2022 is when I finished.
And what?
Right on time, by the way. Right
Oh.
on the chiropractic school.
Not late.
Yeah, not like under.
On schedule?
Yes,
on time.
on schedule.
So, what? So in y'all's.
Sorry.
Like that?
It just brought a blurb.
We're all
I don't
good.
even know if that was in this cut this whole time
It
until you
hasn't
just
been.
said it.
Who would say that?
Why are you making up
Who would
words?
say something like
Oh, we are. We're all fans.
that in the
Don't
club?
mind me. Carry on.
So, where were y'all as a couple? Like, when was coming back to Paragould or Brooklyn an option in y'all's heads? When you were both now making money and you were living in the loft and you had a great community in your church, where was this, if it was anywhere, in that moment? In, I guess, was it
2022.
2022?
We were never moving back.
Ever.
Ever.
Never, ever.
Never.
Ever, ever, ever.
Not a chance.
Not even
No.
if there was a fire.
No
And
way.
so, and that was like
I'm
the
not
kind of
going
the joke of Colby's like last year of chiropractic school. We're like, we have no clue what we're doing.
So
Like,
chiropractic school is 3.5 years long. After 6 months, 7, after we moved to the Rumby, which is
our
the name of the
loft.
loft,
Yeah.
we were like, oh yeah, we're never moving back. So
This is
for
such a cool
3
place.
years, basically, we even told our family, we're like, yeah, we're not moving back. Don't expect
Don't
us to move
expect
back.
us to be there.
You'll have to come see us. We're not going
You
back.
can move here, but we're not moving there.
Yeah.
And so,
Like, would y'all make jokes about, like, imagine if we went back, like, that would be his...
no,
like,
we were like, we're not moving back.
Yeah. That sounds terrible.
But we just like loved where we lived. It was a cool place to live. We lived downtown. We lived in this really cool loft, and like we could walk to, downtown, and there
You
was
could walk places?
we could
You
walk,
could walk places.
not just our neighborhood. You could
walk
walk to eat.
Yes.
We could walk to our church. Like
We
it
did
was
walk
just
to church a couple times.
we didn't often do
We
that.
could have
but-
walked more
than
if we
did.
got up on time. Some of us.
But it was just a really cool place to live, and we really got acclimated, and it did take us like a year and a half to really be like, these are our people, and really feel that. And so it wasn't just instant like we met these people, but like we were like, we have worked so hard to get ourselves where we're at. We're staying
And to
here,
make
and we
friends.
love it, and we love our church, and all of this stuff. And so that was, and I had also Colby graduated in June. I had taken a new job, and I was supposed to start in May, and it was
the very end of May.
it was on contract.
Way big, like a lot more money.
Yes, because I
better
had been like
hours.
not.
Finally
I
advanced
know.
money.
I was like, I'm gonna make it like in a private
A
practice.
sign-on bonus.
All
We
of this
were-
stuff, and so I was
We're
so
getting that NIL
excited.
deal.
And so we had already we were making plans to stay. Like I was, this is May, and I'm taking this 3-year contract job, and so Colby is getting towards the end, and
the very end.
he is doing an internship for this company.
Yep.
And
So in chiropractic school, you do 3 basic rotations of kind of internships. So you start off seeing students. So like you just see the freshmen basically. That's
The ones you can paralyze and not have to worry about.
Yep. You sign a waiver. So
Or
you
your
can-
wife.
Or your wife when you figure that out.
the sacrificial lamb here
Yes.
for all of your patients.
Then you move on to the outpatient clinic. So just like, going to the hair school or whatever, you get the cheap haircut, you get the cheap chiropractic adjustment.
You
at
get the
school.
people's elbow.
That's right. You get the kids that don't know what they're doing at all, but they're pretending. And then you move on to your internship that is external. So you have to go search out the office and find the office to do your internship. They don't reach out to you. You have to go into the community and find wherever you're going to internship. First place I interned at, sorry if you listen to this podcast, they were terrible.
Yeah, no, you were about
I
to say something else. So.
They were not great. And so I changed. So you do 6 months of this external internship. And so I did my first 3 months one place, did not like it. Then I moved to another place, and this was a franchise practice. And I loved it. I loved that the doctors were making money. I loved their schedule. I loved that everything in the office was really nice and new. And the patients seemed to love it. So everything was great. And I made really good friends with the doctors there. And they actually got me in touch with the people to open up a franchise. So I was in good graces. Everything was moving along. I had a meeting. Meeting went well. They're like, you're in. We're going to get you an office. Just sign your soul on this dotted line. And which I did, by the way. I signed it. It was in the works. Like the ball was rolling. I had a meeting with them. This is in May, probably early May, maybe late April.
And this is like where he goes to this meeting, and we're like, yes, we're going to have an office here, and this is going to be so great, and it's awesome, and like we're going to do this. And he comes home
We're
from
about
this
to
long
ball
meeting,
out.
and I am in between jobs.
Hang on, let me
at
tell how
this
the meeting
point.
goes. I wanna tell how the
I'm
meeting
in
goes.
between jobs at this point. And so I'm not working, and he comes home because I had quit my job, took like a week off, went and visited family, come back, and Colby comes back from this meeting. And so we're very excited. I just want to preface, like, this is also like locked secure. We're staying here.
And I go in the meeting, and they open up this laptop. And I didn't know this about franchises, but they have like their own software and things like that. So they open up this map, and there's these big red circles, and they're all over Atlanta. And they're like, hey, you see these circles? You cannot open a practice inside of the circle. Each practice had a radius of, I think, 20 miles that you could not open another practice.
20 miles.
20 miles. And so, in all of Atlanta is just a big red dot. And they're like, you can go here, 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 or here. And they're all like 2 hours from where we live. So, and I go home.
And he comes home and he's like, well, I can work an hour and a half. And I was like,
we talk about commuting.
Yeah, and so he was like, we're going to commute because we're not leaving this place that we have worked so hard to integrate. Yeah. We have our friends. Like, I'm not starting over. That was horrible. Mm-hmm. Like, we cried a lot when we moved because, like, it was bad and we don't want to start over. Months. And so I was like, we have made it. Like, we have done it. We've met our people. We have our church. Like, I have this job. It's in a private practice. Like, I work so hard.
Everything's, like, perfect.
Yeah. And so then
we're
that
26. This is... Yeah. We're old.
We've got it.
We're settled in.
And so we like have this, and he was like, well, I'll just commute an hour and a half. And I was like, we're not doing that again. Because like we said, the first 6 months of our, we're like, we never saw each other. That was miserable. We don't want to do that again. And so we have this big, long, like, conversation of
that
like...
neither one of us feel good about.
No, and we're just like sitting there. And so also... to back, our rent was going up. So this is after COVID, and so like everything exploded, and prices are rising.
People are going back outside.
Yes, and so but prices are getting way jacked up, and so we already pay a decent amount for rent for this 500 square foot loft that we love. But community is talking, our neighbors are talking, and they say, "Hey, rent is going up like $500, $900 a month." And we're like, whatever. So we go talk to...
There's nearly a comma in that.
We go and talk to the people, and we're like, hey, this is what we heard. Oh, no. Yours isn't going to go up that much. Lies.
Good. Oh,
lies.
Well.
So during this 2-hour talk where we're like planning our whole entire life, and we're like, what are we going to do? I took this job, and like I'm signed in on contract. Like, I don't know if I can break it. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, we're just going to base it on, and this sounds so ridiculous when I say it out loud. If our rent goes up...
a certain amount.
If our rent goes up substantial, like they're saying, we're going to have to move home.
No,
because
we just thought about moving. I had mentioned in this talk that we had,
yes.
I said, well, what about Jonesboro?
And I'm like, well, maybe. And that's the first time we had ever been like,
I don't think you gave me a maybe. We're like, I don't think so.
Okay.
Jonesboro's popping now.
Yeah.
2022 Jonesboro.
Mm-hmm.
It was way different. Nowhere else in the country is popping like
absolutely.
2022.
Absolutely, and that's what got me.
Yeah.
But
have you been to Hijinks? It's awesome.
I said that last time. I said Hijinks runs Jonesboro.
It absolutely does. Shout out to Hijinks. former employer.
But that was the first time Arkansas had even came up.
In about 2.5 years.
Yeah, and so, because we were just like, we're not moving, all the things. And so I said, I need some fresh air. We need to stop talking about this. Let's go walk the dog. But then we had said, okay, you know what? If rent goes up, we'll move home. Like, we can open a practice, the franchise, like all that. And we can do it in Jonesboro. There's no other, close in proximity. They thought it was great. They looked at Jonesboro and was like, that's great to put a franchise there.
So we'd had this talk, and I had to mention, so sometime between that talk and when this happened, I had to mention to them, what about Jonesboro? Mm-hmm. And the franchise looked at it, ran the numbers, and they were like, actually, that looks great. We can do that.
But we had not discussed this until that moment. And so Colby's like, what about Jonesboro? They had said this. And so I said, you know what? If our rent goes up that 500, 900 crazy amount, we'll move. And he was like, okay. And I was like, let's just go walk the dog. So we get up, and our apartment, the lofts, they did not do like email or anything like that. It was all by paper. So we get up,
cash money.
Yes, leash up the dog.
And it's a bad Hallmark movie. Like, it's so obvious what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
we walk, and it slides
right
under the door. We are like about to walk up the door,
and
we pick it up, and wouldn't you know it, rent goes up $500, and we're like, we can't live here. We can't afford this. And that is the moment that we said, we are moving back to Arkansas.
We said, shoot.
So basically, you ate all of your words.
Yes.
You've been saying.
Everything.
And
yes.
I was like, gotcha.
And so, yeah, that is how we made our decision based on it, basically, and a lot of other things. But
So, I don't know how much time I have left on this podcast, but I would like to bring a big arcing story into this, like big arc. So, overarching story. So, as I mentioned earlier, I had gotten a check from a car accident that I was in when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, for the amount of rent. And I actually went to a chiropractor, and the settlement was from going to the chiropractor. And the chiropractor that I went to was Dr. Mike Ungering. And his family in chiropractic is a pretty big deal in chiropractic. His dad was one of the founders of the school. Him and 3 of his brothers are all chiropractors. They have a plaque at the school. The
school that you went to.
The school that I went to, Life University, yeah. And so in the very first quarter, you have to learn about the history of Life University. And their family's mentioned, like they have a whole like class where we're just talking about them. And I was like, oh, that's
Life University is crazy.
University.
I've never heard. Yeah, I didn't hear that.
Yep.
When we went out, but Life U,
Yep.
graduating from Life
The
U
School of
is-
Hard Knocks.
Yeah, the School of Life is
Yeah,
pretty
the
cool.
School of Life. That's where I went. And so Dr. Ungrank, he was my chiropractor. And the entire time that I was in school, I kept having this reoccurring thought. And I thought it was my own thought, but now that I look back, it was God putting this in my head. And it was like once, maybe every month, maybe 2 months, I would just have this thought, man, it would be nice if Dr. Mike was retiring. And I would just think that. It'd be nice if he was just retiring.
Like, why would you even think?
Yeah,
Like,
but it's like,
at the time, like, what a crazy thought.
yeah,
like-
but like,
Because that's
Wow.
back in Jonesboro.
yeah,
Right.
And I was
where we
like,
were not moving back to.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, that'd be nice. And so I go through this franchise, go through all the meetings with this, after we had decided to move home, and
We are literally looking at office spaces in Jonesboro.
oh yeah, I had signed the contract.
Yeah,
Everything's
for this
going
place.
through. I'm
Yeah.
doing trainings almost every day, like what we're going to do for grand openings. I'm finding office space where like I am like
A big pair of scissors for
yes,
this.
I am days away from like finding a space in Jonesboro. Looked at several places, finding a space and putting my office. And every night when I would go to sleep, we had moved back to Jonesboro at this point. And every night when I would go to sleep, I would get this just overwhelming anxiety. And I was just think, I cannot do this. Something is wrong. This is just not what I'm supposed to do.
And he was working at another chiropractic office during this time. And so, like, timeline. And
Yeah.
so, like, we moved back. He's working for someone else while he's about to start up this franchise.
Yeah.
And then, like, is having all of these thoughts. And,
Yeah.
and
So
things.
I'm working for another chiropractor here in town, and Dr. Mike comes in, and the other chiropractor, he comes to see her, and he comes to get an adjustment. He's hurt his back or his leg or something like that, and she's really busy. And I go to tell her, I'm like, hey, Dr. Mike's here to see you, and she's like, I'm too busy. You're gonna have to see him. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. I'm so scared. Yeah, no, I can't do that. And she was like, well, that's too bad. And so I was like, do you mind if I give you adjustment? He's like, and he is a man of few words. So he may have just said, okay. And he lays down, doesn't say really anything other than what's hurting him. I give him adjustment, doesn't say anything afterwards, doesn't even say like thank you. He just walks out the door, he's gone. And I was like, well, that's gonna be the last time I ever see him. He hated that. He hates me. My
But
life
then
is
Colby
over.
comes home and he's like, guess who I got to adjust? Because this whole time, like in school, it's like
It's a big
Dr.
deal.
Like a
Ungray.
celebrity.
Yes.
Yes, he's a big deal. And so then about a month goes by, and he comes back again. And he doesn't even ask for the other doctor. I'm just standing at the front desk. He's just like, hey, you ready to give me an adjustment? I'm like, sure, let's go back there. And he says, he mentioned something, I don't know what he talks about. It was like the weather or something, nothing big. Adjust him, great. Then like 2 weeks later, he comes back, and he starts talking a little more. And I give him another adjustment. And then he comes back like a week later. And then a couple days later, And then he's coming almost every day. And every time he's
Are
talking
you
to
hurting?
me,
Because you're hurting him.
yes, because it's all a scam. I'm charging him $40 per time. No, he's getting better at this.
After this last
After,
one,
yeah, he got up out of that wheelchair just like I should. And finally, one day he called me right when I went to lunch. I mean, it was like 12:01 when he calls me. He doesn't say anything. He just says, "Hey, would you like to take over my practice?" And I said yes. He said, "Okay, well, let's go eat at the China buffet."
Oh my gosh.
Buffet. We just saw a commercial for that on our way, not on our way, but right before we came over here. The China Buffet in Jonesboro?
Yes.
Okay.
On
Shout
South
out.
Caraway.
That's right across from the office. So, yeah, we did our business deals at the China buffet.
And all of this, again, like what Colby's getting to, is like timing. So, you know,
Also, I broke the contract with the franchise. If anybody was wondering, I left that out. Sorry.
So Colby takes over for Dr. Ungrig, but all of that to say, like through our whole marriage, from start to now, even, it's like we're behind. We, you know,
Yes.
we're behind because Colby had to do an extra semester.
With
Quotations, yes.
Yes,
And
that's how
so
we felt.
then we go in and 7 months to the day, we get this, you know, and then, you know, my job, which I was supposed to take on this job, but that day, you know, we decided not to, and I was able to break my contract, you know, and there's lots of in between that we have left out. Like we could talk for hours, but of all the things.
We
So
will,
much
just
more.
not tonight.
Not tonight, yes. And so, but like the timing of everything was just something like through our whole entire time there, and like even now in our marriage, of like everything we know is like on time for God's time, not ours. And so that had
We've
been
gotten a lot more used to that.
and so then it's like when things now, even though we are human and in our flesh, we are like, oh, why isn't this happening? These again, like trusting God with our finances is like, oh, we know that God's going to work this out. And we have to remind ourselves of that when our flesh tries to get in the way, you know, and it does, of like, okay, this is not our timing. Like when we move back, everybody has homes and they've been working, and Colby hasn't worked for 4 years, and we have no money, and all of those things. Like it's like, yes, but that is like not in God's plan for us, because he, you know, knows what goes before us and all of that. And so being able to trust that, because we have seen, oh, to the day, things line up. And so we always laugh. We're like, oh, it'll happen on the day it's supposed to happen. You know, like that has just been kind of like our joke, air quotes, of like, oh, it'll happen right on time of when we need it to happen.
And when we moved back, we moved to an apartment, and we lived there for 7 months.
Yes, yes,
7 months came back.
yes.
Yes.
And
So you broke another lease.
Yes.
Because
We
don't,
did.
Here we don't do 7
We
month
did break a
leases.
lease.
We broke a lease.
And so it was just, yes, reoccurring things and things like that. It's just timing.
Oh, and to throw a wrench into everything, 2 days after I graduated, we found out that we were with child.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We
Timing.
forgot. We have a
Henry's
child.
in there asleep.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yes. Yeah, Colby graduated, and 2 days later, I found out I was pregnant, and I had no idea. Big shock. And also during that time with
How
trusting
did we
God.
forget about
Yeah, but how did we forget
about
about it? Sorry, Henry.
all the things around
But
us.
yeah, timing, back to timing, 2 days after Colby graduated, and at this point we are moving back to Jonesboro. And so a lot of people thought we moved back because we knew we were having this baby, but we
had no clue.
We had no clue, because a month before we had decided to move out or move back. And so then we found out we're pregnant. We both don't have jobs for 3 months.
Oh,
Again.
yeah.
Y'all just are
Again.
addicted to not
We
working.
just don't. We could
the-
not wait to work.
the day before we found out we were pregnant, the day after I graduated, everybody's driving home, and I'm driving. I don't know. I was driving somebody somewhere, and my air wasn't working, but it was like 75 outside, so I'm not really paying attention. The next day it's like 100 degrees because it's June in Atlanta, and I turn the air on, and it's just blowing straight heat in the car. And so the air conditioning went out in the car, and it wasn't just like a little fix.
This
It
wasn't
was-
something Colby could just like Google and fix, which we did the whole entire time we were
Oh,
there.
I fixed the car.
Oh, you had to.
Yeah, because we had no money. But this was like we had to find someone to pay it. And Colby had gotten money for graduation. And we were like, yay, money! We're not going to have a job for 3 months. And so we had this like chunk of money from Colby's graduation. And to the dollar,
Almost. It was maybe like $3 off.
We paid with Colby's air conditioning for that. So then again, here we are with no
It was
job.
like $2,100.
I'm pregnant. We're moving back to Arkansas.
It exploded in the car somehow. And they're like, yeah, if you want the car to work, you're going to have to get this all fixed. Took it to like 3 different mechanics.
And you also had a pregnant wife, so
Yes.
You
air
have to
conditioning,
fix it.
100
Yes.
degrees,
Yes.
it's important.
And so just like lots of reoccurring things of like, oh, God took care of us like almost to the dollar, or like, again, here we are like, okay, we're going to trust you because we don't have a job again and we have no money again.
Yeah. And now you're having a kid and you're moving
yes.
back home
Yes.
where there's help. And like, even though
Yes.
you have community in Atlanta, it's still like, okay,
Yes.
we have people.
Yeah, if you think the housing is crazy in Atlanta, you should see the childcare. It is wild.
Hence, again, solidifying.
I'm in the wrong career. I should be
Yeah.
taking care of children. Be making
If
way
you're
more.
allowed to.
I'd be making way more money.
Well, I didn't even have to ask the 2 last questions that just kind of went with the timeline because y'all just naturally answered both of them.
We
So-
took control, sorry.
No, that is fine. I think I yap enough outside of this, and I know that doesn't really matter for anyone listening, but we have people on because we want to hear your story.
Yeah.
It's not my story. If I just compare everything that y'all
Yeah.
are doing, I don't have anything like that. So I get one of the last questions I do have for y'all is, how often now do you find yourselves like with each other, like reminiscing or making jokes or being like, I can't believe this happened when you lived in Atlanta? Because we lived in an apartment in Jonesboro, Arkansas for 2 years before we moved here. And to me, it just all runs together because it's practical. It was nothing. Like it, just going out, doing it was nothing. So how often do you find yourselves like going back and being like, how did we do that?
All the time.
All
and so
the
it's
time.
funny though, because we're like, we should have written a book because we will be, and we need to start writing them down as we remember them. Because I wish we had done that, like when God showed up with the checks, like that.
there's
We
like
hadn't
10
thought about
things
that for a while. And then
that
whenever,
I mentioned.
and then when we came here and we like had nothing, we're like, but remember, God showed up in those moments. And so we're being like triggered to remember those things. But we laugh because we're like, we should have written a book because there's a lot that couldn't even fit in this podcast
Yeah.
and we've gone over. And so
There's no over.
it's
This is your story.
I had
and
to click
so-
the record button twice. That's it.
If you're friends with us, then you know an annoying amount that we're like,
yes.
yeah,
Well,
back
we
when we
lived in
lived in
Atlanta.
Atlanta, yeah, we did
And
this.
so we get
And
so
Atlanta
annoyed with
was like that.
ourselves that we like say that. And
If you
so
think traffic's bad here, you should live.
yeah.
You should live in Atlanta.
we're like we are so obnoxious. And
So
so but the
annoying.
things that we like learned and the things that were like big, moments or even small moments, just funny things, that happen, it pops up every week at least. I would say, I wouldn't say every day, but it's all the time. And so we're constantly getting reminders, and it's like things that we're struggling with now, we struggled then, just in a different aspect. And so it's like, okay, but remember, like we made it. We've survived on less is what I always say. And so like whenever we think about like finances now, I'm like, well, I'm not worried because we've made it on way less. And God showed up then
Oh,
too.
yeah. We
And
feel,
so-
we feel rich. We got extra money.
even though we are
We
just
sleep
doing
with the
great.
lights on, just because.
You think I'm
Just-
scared of that electric bill?
No, run it up.
And he's lying.
Yeah, we don't do that. We turn the lights off.
But yeah, all the time. And so, we should write a book, honestly.
You
'cause
really should.
There's
I would
so
buy it
many
for you.
things. There are so many
But
things.
y'all would have to write it because I think if you had anyone else write it, it would lose the
Oh.
humor because I've got to have
Oh,
Colby's.
yeah.
I want
Little
to
insight.
read what Colby was writing.
We gotta have a little spice added
Yeah,
in there.
yeah,
We gotta
yeah.
have a little something.
Yeah.
Can't just be all
And a little
vanilla.
extra flavor.
Yeah.
If you could go back and stay in Atlanta, would you do it?
Tough question. I will be totally honest. When we moved back, I was not be. That we were moving back because, like I said, we wanted to stay there, and I'm like, why, God, are you taking us back to Brooklyn, Arkansas, where we said we were not going to move? And so, like, when we were there, we'd be like, we'll never move back to Brooklyn. Isn't that so funny? You know, like that kind of thing.
Those
what
losers.
came up, and so we're like, we didn't want to. And
Could
so,
you imagine not having 6 Krogers?
anything is accessible. And then here we are living in Brooklyn, and so. When we moved back, and I'll be honest, it has been just the last few months, and we moved back in July of 2022, and it is now November of 2024. And every day I'd be like, how can we move back? How can we move back? How can we move back?
It just stopped the last couple months.
Yeah, and so
she's like, we could still go back.
And so it's been
It's after y'all hung out with us.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
It was,
We were like,
that's what it
wow,
was.
we have more friends now. so I will be honest. Like for a long time, and then Colby was like, I bought a practice here. We're not moving back. We're pretty. We bought a house. Like we
Yeah.
have a kid. We have community. And so that was something that I really had to work through when we moved back, because it was like I just had a hard heart, to be honest, about moving back and the stresses that come with being back, and we didn't have to deal with certain things, there, and life got, harder, air quotes, whenever we moved back. And so, although there was all these good things around us. And so, I mean, maybe in the future, yes, that'd be fun, but not right now.
I think we could do it. I don't know that we would want to do it. But I think if we moved there and talked about moving back here, we would say we could do it, but I don't know if we want to do it.
Yeah.
So I think we've learned that wherever God sends us is where we want to be.
Yeah. Something that I have been saying to myself over and over, and this has been in these last 3 months, like where I have gotten to been like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm supposed to be right this moment. I say it all the time now. I say, Keelee, be where your feet are. And that has helped me. And that's just in daily life, because my mind can trickle. Like, I'll be in a session with a client and be like trying to make my grocery list, and I'm like, Keelee, be where your feet are. Or at church, when my mind starts to wander, I'm like, oh, what are we having for lunch? Keelee, be where your feet are. And so that has been something that has just been in my brain, and that has really got me to be like, Keelee, you need to be where your feet are, and where your feet are right now in Brooklyn, Arkansas, with your family, and all of these things, where you're at, in your job, in your church. And so when we were in Atlanta, my feet were there, and I see that now because I'm like clients that I encountered, and I like know that we had like me being with them, they were supposed to be with me, those kind of things. Our community, our friends there, they made an impact. We're still friends with them, we get to go back and visit them, and all of those things, and we made these connections that we would have never made if God had not taken us there. And then now when we're back, even though we're from here, it was acclimating back like we had never even been here. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's like we left young 20s. We were 23 when we moved there, and 27. So we moved back with fully formed brains.
Now y'all are ancient.
I know. Now we're not young adult group.
In the same thing, we both struggled with this when we moved back. The preconceived notions that your friends have about you versus you lived. It feels like we lived through 20 years of experiences just from moving to Atlanta. And like I went through all of this training and schooling, and then when I moved back, like
we are who we were at 23.
Yeah,
it's kind of how we felt.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of hard on moving back. And so we just came back much more mature, a lot of life experiences.
And then some of the friends that we have were not as mature, and it was like, I mean, just being honest, like it's just like we're different people when we moved back, so it was
more culture.
Yeah.
Well, and it's life went on whenever we were gone, and so it's like everyone gets close, or people moved in, and like our church group that we're close with, like they all became friends, and so then we're like, we're moving back, and we went to a new church, and like we're like, we know all these people. I can go to Walmart and see 10 people I know, but I don't know people, and so that was part of like, I don't want to be here. I want to be with my people that are in Georgia because I don't feel like I fit anymore. And so that was just really hard. So that's why I wanted to move back. And so now we're like, okay, we're being where our feet are. And where our feet are, we've met people, we've made community, and like we're in our jobs where we're supposed to be. I see that like with clients. Like I have conversations with clients now that would not go where they would. I would not be able to empathize with them because of my experience in Georgia. And then Colby, you know, just like where he's at, like he's supposed to be here treating the patients like he's supposed to, or, you know, we're going to be leading groups at church and we know like that is going to be, you know, where we're supposed to be. And so long answer to your story. Like used to, yes. Now, right now, no.
Today,
no. Ask me tomorrow.
The initial reason and your thought behind be where your feet are is the easiest. Clip that, send it out there. Like, that's perfect because
I've never need to hear that.
Yeah, because I've never thought like that. I'm similar to you, Colby. It was like I can't think a day in advance. I talk about that often. Where if someone was like, "Oh man, in May of next year," I go, "May of next year."
No, even if I'll be alive.
I can't tell you what I'm going to be doing next week, so I can't think about that. So being able to put myself in the where are your feet right now, you've got to be right there, is awesome. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. I mean, we have sufficiently gone through everything that I had planned for this episode. So I just wanted to say thank y'all so much for just having us over at your house at your table and sharing with us parts of your story.
Yeah, stay tuned, listeners. Snippets. There are going to be multiple episodes.
Next podcast is conspiracy theories.
That is fantastic. Yeah, the part 2 is not even going to be able to be on this channel. It's going to be somewhere else. Y'all are going to have to search. You're going to have to look out for that one. So the last question I have, and I'll give a little bit of an explanation. So we have called this the Table Talk Podcast because Tony Lucius came up with the idea of being at your table, which was with their son growing up, they made it a point to be at the dinner table, no phones, no nothing. It was sit down and having intentional talk with people you love. So we, expanded that out to anytime you can slow down and have intentional conversations with people that you love or people that you enjoy being around. So we have had answers all across the board of what your table is. The podcast with interviews that we have done at our house hasn't even been at our table. The most recent episode we did, which you should go check out if you're listening, our first solo episode, our coffee table's our table. Yeah. And my chair in the living room is where I sit, and on the couch is where she sits. That would have been bad. But, so this might not be your table, so I want to ask, where is or what is your table where y'all do that?
As a couple or individually?
As a couple.
Okay. I would say that we are still kind of figuring that out, and it's funny that this is a conversation that we're having because one thing that we want to be intentional, can it be like a future table?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you want your table to be if you don't have one?
Yeah, so from this podcast, something like branched off of that, a thought is that when we move back, like we said, we learned to do community well. And so something that we took away from that was that people were intentional with people they had no clue who they were, and they were new, and they were specifically reaching to these people that they did not know and wanted to make feel welcome and like integrate and pour into and, do life with, basically. And so something that has kind of been stirring with us, and we don't know where this is going, is that...
I think Colby's about to find out something he did not know.
me, maybe. So this would be us as a couple, but I have been talking to Colby about this, is that my heart is for people like us. So whenever we were in Georgia, I will say our table as a couple we were on the welcome team there. And so we, he's like, okay, now I'll do it.
I was just going to say the couch.
But the welcome team was like what we incorporated into, and I would say that like intentionally, like our mission, I guess, in a way, or like what we wanted each week was that we would go and talk to people who knew no one. Because I told Colby, I never want anyone to feel the way that I felt. And so I don't ever want someone to sit by themselves in a pew or whatever, or come to church and no one even say, hello, how are you? Because people did that to us.
Yeah.
And they knew our name the second time we came.
Yeah.
And so whenever we came back, they were like, hey, Keelee and Colby. And we're like, someone knows us in a place where no one knows us. And I will never forget that feeling. And so something that I have been really thinking on is how do we do that here? And what's a way that we can do that here? So that is just something that like I know that is on our table. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but like in, you know, we've been talking about like at our church, like how can we get, you know, connected with people? And so I would say that, I don't know if I'm answering your question right, but...
There really isn't a wrong answer. I can't wait to hear where Colby's table is. But one of the answers that we have gotten is the sidewalk, like our driveway.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
somewhere where you don't actually sit down is an
Yeah.
answer. Like being on like the welcome team or...
Well, and it's not even the welcome team. It's like, hey, you don't know anybody? Do you want to get coffee?
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, or like, I'll connect you, you know.
You've got a very mobile table.
Yeah.
Hey, Colby,
sorry.
where is
I
your
think
table?
they just meant where do you and I go to talk with no phones and distractions.
Oh,
Like,
sorry.
yeah, couch.
I'm
Where
so
is
sorry.
Y'all's table.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am
No,
so
I
sorry.
think-
No.
No, don't let Walker and Colby deter
Edit
you.
me out.
Jamie,
Edit
cut that out.
No, we're not.
Walker.
Not even
No,
close.
we are not cutting that out because I think that's very important.
good answer.
Thank you,
It was
Ashlyn.
good.
That was a very
It was a
therapist
good
answer.
Well, it's a serious answer.
It was
It was serious, but I
It
thought
was
that's what you were
serious.
saying. Like, what is our table? Sorry.
That's
Sorry,
what you want it
listeners.
to be. You want your table to be a mobile table. I like
Sure.
that.
Okay,
Um,
Colby and I's table is our couch. Short answer.
Listeners, you've got to go to YouTube and watch this because Colby's facial expressions this whole time have been fantastic.
And then in marriage, we're going to go talk about this after.
They are about to go to their table when we get out of here and hash some things
The
out.
welcome team at church.
Walker, you should have given us the answers earlier.
The answers.
We've had a script this whole time.
Okay, ours would be our couch where our dog
couch.
is
The
laying right now.
So where's y'all's table?
So
It's a couch.
confused.
And this is the fuel for my insecurity.
Did not know
I'm going to go think about this for the next 5 days.
where we were going.
She's gonna want to move back to Atlanta after this
I'm
comes out.
gone. They're never going to eat dinner with us ever again.
That
that's
was
not true.
that was a lie for the
Sorry.
table. It's okay.
Our table.
This is a much better answer than I
Yeah,
would
that's-
have gave.
that is a much-
probably better than anyone's given.
It's true.
Yeah, we got like dining room table, we've got a driveway, we've got the couch, and then I have never heard that answer before.
Okay, so I thought you were saying like a seat at our table. Like, where do we want people to come to our table?
That
am
is
on
another
another-
level. That is above us.
I'm an LCSW.
I'm
Keelee
not
wants
on that
everyone
level.
to know that their story matters.
Did y'all hear earlier? Like, I not only did not finish college, like there's no way I was gonna finish college. I'm
I
not
would-
thinking on the same level y'all are.
I was not either.
Ours is always our couch.
That's our table.
The conversation that we had in Georgia to our conversation
On the couch.
Okay.
Not even
Anytime
really.
we have
Well,
to-
I mean, that's all. The only we only had room for a
Yeah,
couch.
we only had a
so-
couch, so
500 square feet.
we had a table that
570,
sat
570.
2, and so this is an upgrade.
There we go.
You
So
upgraded to allow us to sit at your table.
yeah,
That's
we
right.
did.
We did have that 2-seater. For a
Yeah.
while.
Anyway,
If anyone
That was
came
a-
over, they had to sit on the couch. Or
yeah,
in the floor.
yeah, all big conversations. Anything that has to be hashed out on the couch,
Great.
feet to feet, sectional, staring at each other.
Both-
Feet to feet.
Whoa.
Where your feet are.
Be where your feet
Be
are.
where your feet are.
Do you think about that at the time when y'all are?
No, I don't.
Alright,
I'm
yeah.
usually not in that headspace.
Those were both great answers. There's no wrong answers to
Thank
that
you,
question.
Walker, for building me
You're
up.
welcome.
I'm really
And that's why I didn't. If I
feel
thought
really
it was the wrong
sweaty.
answer, I would have been like,
Oh,
"What are
whoa,
you
whoa.
saying?" That would have been so
I
insensitive. I would have said,
almost
"What are you
leaned in.
doing?"
It was like, what are you talking about?
I'm so glad you're so supportive of me.
But I didn't. I
So
just
many
made.
outtakes. in this
I'm gonna have to
episode.
take a
No,
shower.
it's all
when
in.
y'all leave, 'cause I'm
But you
so
can see
sweaty.
my face like.
I know, but I thought I was answering it right.
You were. That
You
was
did.
Your,
You
that
answered
was
it
your answer.
so
That
much
was your
better
truth.
than I would have answered it.
I should just let you talk. That's what happens when I talk.
It is past 7 o'clock.
You did great.
Yeah, thank you.
You did great.
Yeah, y'all did great.
Well, that is something that I want to happen in our future.
I think you can make that happen.
Yeah,
Without Colby, because he's not going to support me in that journey.
I support you. I just don't know if I understand you all the time.
Yes, you do.
I do. You did great.
Holidays, thank you so much for having us over.
This has been so fun.
Yeah, this has been great. We will definitely host you at our house, or if we can take this wherever you want your table to be, we can do that. I might have to upgrade equipment.
If there's anybody listening that doesn't know anybody, come sit at our table.
We're gonna slap some wheels on this bad boy. We're gonna take it.
We can take
Through
it
the
wherever.
community.
Yeah, we're going mobile. Okay. We'll do it. We'll end it here. Thank y'all so much
Thank you.
for
Yeah.
being here. Thank you so much for listening and watching. If you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I don't know how you couldn't like what you have watched or heard today, but from the Holladays table to wherever yours is, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.